A few problems often trip me up when I'm doing a large graded wash with two different colors, like I did at the bottom of this watercolor still life. I'll get to these pitfalls in just a minute. First, I use a large flat brush like this to put clean water over the whole area. I should warn you in advance, I'm going to share this process in mostly real time rather than time-lapse, just as an experiment. My views have been going down lately anyway. I hope that just means everyone's having fun outdoors these days. I'm going to be doing a graded wash with two different colors. The first one is a mix of Windsor yellow with a tiny bit of quinacridone magenta to make it a warmer yellow, and then I apply that in the transition zone between what will be the darker part of the wash and the lighter area. It goes on a little denser than I would like, so I get more water on the brush to try to thin it out a little. Watching this in real time will let you see how barely in control of the materials I really am these days. I clean my brush and pick up this mix of quinacridone magenta and Payne's gray that was dried on my palette, but the paint is too weak and watery and doesn't do much of anything, so I remix it again, and then I'm starting to get the kind of color density I was hoping for there on the right, though my wash has a lighter patch running through it, which I'm kind of enjoying for now. On the left side, I quickly run into one of the pitfalls I warned about. With a large graded wash, the parts that you work on last will be too dry by the time you get there. I pick up another brush and use it to apply clean water in the boundary area where I had a hard edge forming, but that thins out and lightens the paint too much. I get some more of the dark mix and apply it to the corners and let it bleed into the painting, which it does more smoothly now on the left side than on the right. I'm also noticing some hard lines forming along what was the edge of the big wet area, so I blot these with a clean paper towel. I use a large dry brush to do some blending, being careful that the brush movements don't introduce dark paint into a lighter area. That's another gotcha, especially after putting the brush down and forgetting it has paint on it, which is something I can picture myself doing and have done. It can cause streaking the next time you use the brush if you're not careful. Another thing to watch out for is paint spots on your paper towel. As you blot and pick up paint, these can transfer back to your painting like an ink stamp while you're blotting if you're not careful. So I fold and refold the towel and get a new one periodically to avoid this danger. Now I dry the whole thing with a hairdryer on a low air, high heat setting. And okay, if you want to see me make a terrible decision now, this is it. Mixing up more dark paint and applying it while the paper is still very warm from the dryer. You see me hesitate when I realized I screwed up, and then I just went for it, repainting the whole corner. I got my big blending brush wet and used that to try to soften the hard edge that's already forming on the warm paper. And when I tried to add more yellow with yet another brush, it didn't look great, so maybe more water? And more yellow? Nope, that just makes it worse and worser. Back to the big brush, which I check to be sure it's mostly clean, and then I use that to try to blend again. Is that better? I decided I could live with it for now. I dried it and let it cool off this time. I'm still not 100% happy, so I get the whole right side uniformly wet again. The third time is definitely the charm. Since the left side will be mostly in shadows, it doesn't need to be as smooth. I put more of the dark paint in the corner with yet another clean brush, and then thin that out with more water. And then some more blending, which is not doing much, since my staining pigments have by now sunk so deep into the paper. So I just dry it completely. And then the next thing will be to paint the glass shadows. Thanks for watching me stumble through this whole process and barely avoid the big pitfalls, or not. To recap, these were uneven drying, a dirty blending brush used a second time, paint on a paper towel used for blotting transferred back to a light area, and repainting anything while the paper is still hot from the dryer. Thanks for watching Watercolorish. If you enjoyed this, I hope you'll subscribe to see more watercolor tips and tricks coming soon.